Coach Brad here. It's October 17th today. Headed to school. I got a midterm at 1, and I just thought I'd take a couple minutes to put this video out. Something I've been thinking a lot about, which has to do with education as a peer recovery coach. And I've learned a whole bunch of stuff this last year in college and in grad school, and also through trainings at my company where I'm a coach at, who I coach for. And I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of people about expectations with education, continuing education, certifications, certificates, licensing. In this field, as a coach, if you want to get licensed, it's actually quite a bit. It's quite a bit of stuff, requirements, and I'm not talking about being a certified peer recovery coach or a MDHHS certified. Those are certifications, and they're valuable, no doubt. And I certainly recommend that you all get those things if they're applicable in your state. But the things that are going to make you a lot of money, or I shouldn't say that, the things that are going to make you, considerably more money are the licenses and the degrees. Now, I'm not sitting here on my high horse, and I've been blessed. The military paid for my associates and my bachelor's, and I'm getting help for my master's degree. So I understand there's people that don't have the same means and opportunities that I have had and continue to have now, and I recognize that, and that's okay. We all have our own path. But it's doable. Whatever your situation is, it's doable, even if it means loans. So anyways, I actually was terrible in school. I hated going except to chase women and get high at school, ironically enough. And that was in high school. But, in middle school, junior high, I didn't have good grades. And in fact, I was face to face with the prospect of not graduating high school. I needed a 2.0 to graduate, and it got down to the wire to the last semester. I had I can't remember if it was algebra. It was some kind of math class, and math, as many of you guys can understand, is not my strong suit. But my teacher worked with me. I had a long paper due, and I had to get a certain grade in that class, and those were the two things that I was able to pull out of my behind in time to make it happen. So I think I graduated with literally a 2.0. It might have been a 2.0 something or a 2.1, but it was the bare minimum that I needed to graduate. And I never liked school. I didn't like learning things, and it really gave me a lot of anxiety and frustration and anger. And both my parents have 2 master's degrees. My older brother has a master's, at least one. I think I think he has 2 now as well. And my grandfather was always pushing on me, education, get the bachelor's degree. And I messed around for a long time. I went to the Army, basically walked off the stage of graduating high school and went straight into the infantry to become an airborne ranger in the U.S. Army. And I did that for a couple years, and I maintained sobriety, sort of, although I'd go on long weekends, and I'd drive from Fort Benning down to Tampa for a 3-day weekend, and I'd get blitzed and come back, and on the way pick up something to mask my urine for the inevitable post 3-day weekend P test, which a lot of you veterans, I'm sure, are familiar with. And a couple times I didn't have anything, and I thought for sure I was done for. And I just, by the luck of God, man, or whatever, luck of the universe. But anyways, I digress. So, once I got out of the military, my grandfather really tried to instill in me, like, you got to do this, man. Like, it's too valuable to pass up. So I tried to go to college. I think I counted 4 times, and I dropped out 4 times. Maybe 5 if we count one other time that I was trying to do something on my own. But during those times, I thought there was just no way I was ever going to get a college degree. It just seemed too daunting a task for somebody, my previous caliber to be able to accomplish. It just seemed too far out of reach to take seriously, I think, for me at that time. But I had no self-confidence, and I was desperately hooked on opioids and doctor shopping. The whole smorgasbord of drugs and substances that I was into. It was just ridiculous how much stuff I was on. But there was a part of me that wanted to make that happen. That wanted to get a degree and have that rite of passage, checked off my list, and be looked at as more of a man in my grandparents' eyes and my parents' eyes, and the respect that comes with getting a degree. And then eventually I left Florida. One of the many times I've moved back and forth. I left Florida a few years after I got out of the Army and went to Michigan, and I was able to get sober for a couple years and get my associate's degree. And I haven't been here in the Detroit area that whole time. I've been back and forth several times since then. But what that did for me, getting that associate's degree, even though I know it's not super valuable in a lot of practical contexts, a lot of jobs aren't saying you need an associate's degree. Oh, there are some, but not many. It's usually bachelor's or master's. But more than anything, what that did for me was show me that I could do it, and I did it well. I had, I don't know what I had my associates. It was 3.5 or 6. It was pretty good. And for a guy that barely graduated high school, that was shocking that I was able to do that. And, unfortunately at that time, I moved back to, at the end of my associate's degree, I went to rehab for the first time for heroin. And my parents had no idea. They had some idea that something was going on, but they had no idea it was that. Because I was selling everything. I was completely broke. I was always not feeling well. And so I went to rehab, and I still finished all my classes except one, which was biology with a lab. And I needed a science with a lab to graduate, so I moved back down to Tampa. I walked. I did my cap and gown and the whole ceremony, but I still needed one class, and I went to the University of South Florida to do that one class, which ended up being a geology with a lab. And I got a B or a C in it, and I thought that was all I needed, and I was done at that point. And then I really went downhill. Lots of doctor shopping. Somebody introduced me to crack cocaine, and just lots of things happened over the next 10 years, or give or take, about 10 years. Sorry, I gotta get over here. So fast forward, I ended up moving back to Florida, then back to Michigan again. And I've been here now 10 years. 12 years. And before I did my undergrad here this time, I was selling life insurance, and I let a lot of people convince me that was the bee's knees, and that there was no better thing to do with your life than to sell insurance. And I bought into it hook, line, and sinker for about 5 years. And finally, I had so much anxiety wrapped up into that job, and it was like a bad relationship. Like, I was scared to know what it was like to live without it, and I didn't know if I could live without it. And but that was one of the best things that happened to me, because I quit and I didn't have another path lined up. Part of me quitting had to do with drugs. I was just really in the mess of things, and I had benefits left over from the military that I hadn't used, and those run out after 15 years, and I was right at the 15-year mark, and I was about to lose them, and I was like, well, they'll pay me to go to school, and they'll pay all the tuition, they'll give me a monthly stipend to live off of, pay all my books, tuitions, and supplies, or I can do that, or I can go to work and do a 9 to 5 and probably never amount to much doing that. And that's my own personal view on that. But and so I decided to go to school, and not for any reasons to save the world initially, but or help people, but because it was just the better of the two options that I was facing down. And what better degree to go for than a bachelor's of addiction studies, considering all the practical experience I had over the previous 2 decades, or a decade and a half at that point maybe. And so that's what I did, and there just happened to be a school about 50 minutes, 55 to an hour, 50 to an hour depending on traffic, the University of Detroit Mercy, which is where I'm now doing my master's degree as well. And so that's what I did. I went and did my bachelor's of addiction studies at UDM, and I graduated with a 3.7, and I won the Robert and Genevieve Sage Addiction Studies Award, which is awarded to the student who graduates with the highest GPA in his program. And that was a very proud moment for me. I got to do a speech at graduation, although this is smack during the middle of COVID, so unfortunately my ceremony was all virtual. I never got a cap and gown and all that, and so that's kind of sad, but I'll get to remedy that when I graduate with my master's degree. But so I had a bachelor's now all of a sudden in addiction studies, and I pretty much had the idea that I wanted to be a recovery coach, because that was pretty much all I knew you could do with it. Well, actually, you don't even need a bachelor's degree to be a recovery coach, as any of you who are one knows. But that was just the thing that I knew about that I could do, and I had other interviews for stuff that didn't really line up with what I was looking at and what I wanted to do. And so I found a company, a really great company, and they paid more than any of the other companies, and they were highly respected and doing a lot of great things. And so I got hooked up with them and was basically hired in immediately after the first interview. And actually, let me back up. Before that, I had a guest speaker, a guy from my company, come in and talk about volunteering as an angel for the company, and it's like a volunteer position title, and then they're being a peer recovery coach, and that's how I learned about that company. And so I went to work for them, and I'm still a recovery coach now, obviously, and then it just made sense that I wanted to take it to the next level, and getting my master's degree in addiction counseling to becoming a legitimate therapist, a licensed therapist, was just the next step in my evolution, the next logical step. And that's what I did, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm almost halfway through, and I am flying through. My semesters to be full-time is only 6 credits in this program, and I've been taking 12 and 9 credits every semester. And actually, this is only my 3rd, but I'm going to do it in 6 semesters. So why am I telling you guys all that? I was the basest druggie you could probably imagine, and I'm sure some of you guys probably feel the same way, so it's just normal. But I mean, I was hooked on uppers, downers, as Duke says in Fear and Loathing Las Vegas, uppers, downers, laughers, screamers, whatever I could get my hands on. But I was mostly addicted to opioids and cocaine, and I loved shooting. That was, once I went to the needle, it's just like they say, you'll never want to go back, and that was certainly true for me. And all my veins are blown completely out. My jugular veins are full of scar tissue. There's no visible veins other than little hair thin spider veins in the insides of my elbows, and the insides of my arms. The veins in my feet and my legs they're all gone. When I I stand up too fast, the blood has trouble traveling throughout my body, and I get lightheaded. I've passed out. I broke my foot passing out one time in my own bathroom because of that. So I really screwed my body up in more ways than one. You know, I've had all my front teeth are fake. You know, I've had thousands of dollars in dental work. But anyways, I digress. So the point is, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And you know, I have a guy in my master's program who has cerebral palsy, and his grades are as good as mine. He shows up every day. And I mean, you can't imagine. He can't use his hands, he can't use his legs, feet, body, nothing. And he's become a good friend of mine. And so when I feel sorry for myself, or if I feel that if I start internalizing negative energy, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, I think of him. And I realize that, you know, this really comes down to what my priorities are and how much effort I'm willing to put into those priorities. And I would suggest that the same thing is true for you guys. What is important to you? How hard are you willing to work to get it? I mean, really, this life is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you try hard enough and you give it your all and you have a clear and defined goal or goals, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You just have to decide, am I willing to take the amount of time that it's going to take, and am I willing to give the amount of energy that's required to achieve that goal? And that's why I'm always going back to goals. If you're aimless, how do you know what success looks like if you haven't defined it yet? So, with all that being said, the importance of education as a recovery coach and in the helping space in terms of addiction and recovery is really important. And there's tons of room out there for people to continue educating themselves and to get degrees, certifications, and licenses. And take it from me, this shit is flying by. And if you commit yourself to getting a license or a degree or a certification, it's going to go by much quicker than you think. You know, before you actually start. Like we give the anxieties around these things that we haven't done yet way more power than they actually deserve, which is why the things that we stress about the most tend to be not so stressful once we actually have to engage with them. And that's been a really critical life lesson that I've learned along the way. So continue educating yourself. There's tons of resources in terms of scholarships, and you know, there's money out there. Loan forgiveness, if that applies to you. So, you know, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. And you know, get after it, guys. Get after it. You know, don't settle for having PRC in front of your name. You know, get yourself some letters after your name. You know, I know it shouldn't work this way, but people give you more respect for those things. And you know, the real test of respect is what kind of character you have, and I realize that, but it doesn't help to be educated and to have some bona fide credentials after your name, to show people what you've done and the sacrifices you made, and also the knowledge that you attained. So that went a little longer than I thought. If you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment section. Like and subscribe. Later.